Hello there friends and welcome. For today's Warhammer Rogue Trader guide we have all about Marazhai the Drukhari Elf Companion. And we'll be going with both dual wielding and also two-handed weapons in the same character for maximum melee potential as an assassin. Perfect for unfair mode because the higher the enemy's hit points, the higher your damage will be. Capable of even higher than 1000 per melee strike whenever hitting the enemy's weak spots. With of course amazing agility to be the perfect dodge tank, so all attacks will miss you, both melee and ranged. With loads and loads of extra mobility as well, to charge through the battlefield as you slice and dice through multiple enemies per turn, easily destroying everything in one go. So without further ado, let us get into our Marazhai melee assassin build. Marazhai is pretty much the last companion you recruit, which means he comes pretty late levels wise. You can only respec him from level 29 plus, more like 30 plus. Kinda disappointing, and I'm not sure why Allcat is still obsessed with this limitation when it comes to story party members, as it just restricts their customizability and potential. For example, you can't pick anything from his warrior side, and some choices are not as optimal. Even most of his assassin talents are already picked for you. Anyways, for level 30 we get to pick another assassin power, and ideally you absolutely want Killing Edge, the ultimate assassin power for the highest damage boost possible. Whenever you see assassins hitting for higher than 1000 damage, it's because of Killing Edge for both melee and or ranged. Sadly, he won't really have the space as far as assassin progression for Death Whisper, another great power because it's essentially a free attack. For the first generic talent, we want a unique talent to Marazhai, Prey on the Weak. Whenever he's bleeding, every kill he makes will grant him a +5 stacking bonus to both weapon and ballistic skill. And well, he does have a unique skill to make him bleed automatically at no cost. For the assassin talent, Rush for Deadly Calculation. One of the most important ones for extra damage. For every 10 damage you deal, the enemy will also suffer +1 as extra direct damage that can be resisted. As far as his skill, he already maxes athletics out, and I recommend you go with Lord Xenos, if only because, well, it is fitting for him as an elf. Second, during Act 3 and 4, there's a lot of Lord Xenos checks, and even some traps that can only be disarmed through Lord Xenos. He already has good enough ranks in Demolition, by the way. For another assassin talent, there's a lot of stuff I'd like to pick, but since we can only get one now because of his other choices we can't respec out, you might as well pick Lethality Heightens, which will keep increasing your lethality score, and the higher your lethality, well, the higher the damage you deal. He already has maxed agility and weapon skill, so for the other one, you can increase his Lord Xenos or just go for strength. Even toughness, because he does start with uneven toughness score. For level 33, It Will Not Die can always be a nice enough choice for more hit points, but honestly chances are enemies won't really be hitting your Marazhai at this point. He has super high dodge. So I just go for more weapon skill, which of course means more to hit chance, parry, and also higher melee critical hit chance. For the second upgrade to Dispatch, it doesn't matter at all, you'll never be using this, rather your warrior's Daring Breach ability instead. And that's it for our measly assassin progression. Thankfully we do get full customization over our exemplar abilities, which can as always be great. Starting with the classic Extermination to highly increase his damage, +1 for every attack, and through Daring Breach and Finest Hour from Officer, well, you have loads of attacks. Stuff like Deadly Aim isn't as good for a melee assassin as opposed to a ranged one, because you don't really have that high perception. We can now pick another warrior talent, and well, you might as well go for Ramming Speed, which increases your charge distance by a lot of extra cells. The more mobility you have on your Marazhai, the better, so that you can attack as many enemies as possible in just one turn. For the skill increase, in my case just more Lord Xenos. And for more assassin talents, I do think a few options here are bugged unfortunately. Outsmart I wasn't able to get it to proc, so I'd rather go for either Killing Spree for extra damage or Perfect Opening for even higher damage when hitting the opening on the enemies. Then it's back to agility increases his most important stat, of course for more dodge and even more initiative. For more generic talents, well, might as well pick It Will Not Die just in case, or you can go for a strength boost. Even the Emboldened by Bloodshed talent, that increases his willpower and fellowship by 15, which can mean more resolve. For the warrior power, Taunting Scream can work if you want to taunt enemies, but I'd rather Sworn Enemy for more damage against single powerful targets. Then more Lord Xenos, and for the second exemplar talent, at level 40, I'd rather Tricky Defense first. The higher your dodge, the better of course, as it's directly tied to lethality and avoiding enemy attacks. Then one of the assassin talents I mentioned before, such as Lethal Concentration, the more lethality, the better. More agility after that, and as another warrior talent, you might as well pick the charge boosting ones, such as Impetus, for even more charge damage. Followed by Death Whisper at long last, for an extra attack. Once you max agility, it's back to weapon skill. Then I would pick Killing Spree for more damage, as I do think Outsmart is bugged. Anything else you want for another generic talent. Might as well pick Emboldened by Bloodshed, because at least it's something unique to him. Then more Lord Xenos. And for the last exemplar talent, at least as far as level 45 progression, you have around 55 levels though. Either Deadly Aim, but this is better for ranged assassins, Cataclysm for more damage, or Critical Velocity for the same purpose. Alright, now let's do a quick section on how to play as our Marazhai assassin. First, unlike pretty much all of my other builds, by virtue of being an assassin, it's actually better to act during your first true turn rather than extra turns, because the assassin's main mechanic, the opening, that is, the red targeting icons you see around pretty much all enemies, I'm not sure if it's a bug or oversight, but they will only appear during your main turn, not extra turns. The good thing is, by the time you get Marazhai, it is extremely easy to reach high momentum whenever his first true turn comes. Anyways, once Marazhai's first true turn comes, ideally you always want to make him bleed first through Joyful Torture. It doesn't cost anything, the damage he takes doesn't matter because you'll be killing everything before they can damage, and even if they try to attack him, they'll just miss. This is mostly for synergy with some of his talents. Plus it also increases his resolve even further, which is great for more momentum. After that, the choice is pretty simple. If it's an extra turn and the enemies don't have openings yet, or if the openings are on a side you cannot hit. For example, we can't really move to the back of this enemy here, where the targeting zone is, since, well, it's being blocked by an obstacle. Therefore, what you want to do is first activate Aim for the Opening, which automatically creates an opening facing your character's direction. Then you'll always want to attack with Killing Edge, the assassin's unique skill that highly increases your damage, especially when hitting an opening. So by just doing that, there we go, we already one-shot the strongest enemy. The higher their hit points, the higher the damage you deal, especially when hitting the opening. After that, well, since you can dual wield, you might as well use your offhand attack, because you still have enough AP for it. Since we can hit the other opening at the back of this enemy here, you have a lot of abilities for extra movement, starting with Danse Macabre. You can dash up to 6 cells, so always use this whenever you want to move. The first use is 1 AP, but the other uses will be 0. So let's dash here. If you're already at high momentum, you can of course immediately activate the Daring Breach warrior ability, which grants you loads of extra attacks at no cooldown, so you can actually refresh your Killing Edge uses. But first, since we have an extra attack remaining, well, might as well hit the enemy here from the backside. You can even activate damage boosters like Reckless Strike first. Unfortunately, without Killing Edge, you won't really be one-shotting enemies through openings. You can still do more attacks in the same turn. Ideally, you want to activate Breakthrough. It costs 2 AP, but grants you the Slash ability at 0 AP. This lets you essentially get an extra minor attack against an enemy, which is great to finish enemies left with low hit points. If they have high hit points, well, it's not gonna do much. But it's still an extra attack. Once all of your attacks are gone, you might as well activate your heroic action to refresh all of your action points, and of course, most importantly, more Killing Edge uses. So now it's just a matter of spamming Killing Edge on the remaining enemies. Through Daring Breach you can of course restore a lot of movement, which is what lets you slice and dice through the battlefield, and ideally you want to keep hitting the openings with your Killing Edge power. For the enemies you don't one-shot, well, remember you'll always have the Slash ability we activated before, to handle them just fine at no attack or AP cost. And well, it's just a matter of spamming your Killing Edge again and again. It does feel like there's a bug with the opening mechanic, because sometimes you deal huge extra damage to seek the opening, other times you just miss this bonus despite hitting the enemy's opening. For example, this enemy was hit for 408. Now the same enemy here, if you activate the same Killing Edge, we only got 100. It doesn't make any sense. I think it's a bug, which is sadly preventing you from dealing uber damage with all strikes. Don't forget you can still make use of your Warrior's Charge ability for more movement and more damage. Also, because chances are you'll be at high momentum again after killing all these enemies through the Daring Breach heroic action, well, if you have my officer builds, you can just have them go for, let's say, Inspire for more damage, Linchpin for more resolve, and most importantly, Finest Hour on Marazhai, so you get to repeat the cycle once more. Now let us cover gear for our Marazhai assassin. Sadly, as an elf, well, he's missing a lot of the best gear in the game, just like Earlead or Ulfor the Space Marine, thus the red backgrounds on pretty much a lot of stuff here, including armor and even weapons. As you can only recruit him during Act 3, some items that can help are first, the Embroidered Cloak, so that you get a plus 3% to dodge until the end of combat whenever affected by an ally's ability, and of course it can stack, amazing for, well, when you're buffed by officers, Cassia or other characters. For armor, honestly the reinforced Cabal armor you get at Act 3 is perfect for him and more than enough. It boasts a very high amount of base armor for just being light, and will increase your dodge even further so long as your agility is higher than 65, which is always for him. For accessories, first the improved injector, mostly so that the first use of any consumable per turn will cost nothing, 0 AP only. And there's plenty of powerful stuff such as the Stim for plus 4 AP and movement, most importantly Dark Swiftness for a huge plus 40% bonus to dodge, which of course also increases your offensive power to assassin, and Scorcher for plus 1 AP and to reset the cooldown of your abilities. While these carry downsides on the turn after you use them, well, the enemies will be dead by then, so who cares. And for the other accessory, well, you can go with the Beat of Might for higher damage, but it's better for Act 5 when you'll have more AP. And as far as Act 3, just the Iron Cape for a plus 10 bonus to agility, which of course means more dodge. It's just that the Fellowship bonus means nothing to him, so you might as well prefer this on, let's say, an officer ally, who can benefit from both stats. The reviving ability is very good as well, but chances are you'll never die with such high dodge anyways. And for the Talisman, the Requiemator, so that whenever you kill enemies, you also inflict area of effect damage on nearby foes, equal to your willpower bonus. While by default, Marazhai has low willpower, well, by just having Cassia cast Reveal the Light on you, you'll get a massive bonus. For Helmet, there's barely anything you can equip, but you might as well go with the Saboteur's Helmet. It looks cool, but doesn't really help a melee build that much, it's just that you don't really have any other options. Anyways, you'll suffer minus 30% less damage from area attacks, and it also lets your first grenade per turn not count towards the attack limit. For gloves, definitely Slayer's Delight, that will increase your damage with two-handed weapons whenever using a single target attack by a huge amount, 3 times your strength bonus for us when buffed, that's around 21 extra damage per hit, which is pretty much around 50% extra damage when you consider your base damage is around 27 or so when two-handed. Both these gloves and the helmet are from the Casbalica mission faction, that's where all of the Xenos gear is. Now as far as weapons, well, for Act 3, the sharpened Venom Blade on the main hand, it has amazing damage, even higher than two-handed weapons, amusingly enough. You can also poison enemies with the area of effect attack, but chances are they'll be dead before they get to suffer from the poison damage. And for the offhand, you can use one of the weapons that inflict bleed on hit, such as Glimmer Steel Blade, or the Serrated Glimmer Steel Blade. The main issue I have with these two weapons is that, well, they don't inflict bleed automatically, rather the enemy has to fail a toughness test first. And on unfair, enemies tend to have very high toughness. Even if you debuff them with Cassia, they can have around 70 to 80% chance of resisting it, at least the toughest ones. And since you can switch between dual wielding and two-handed weapons on the fly, you can keep his starter Bloodseeker Clave as his two-handed option during Act 3. The effect can be quite good. Whenever you hit a bleeding enemy, you will get a huge bonus to your dodge, so of course it has synergy with the offhand weapons I mentioned before. It's just that once again the enemies can resist the bleeding effect. For Act 4, however, we get a lot more powerful weapons, starting with the Gem Blade of Wyremiris from the boss of Act 3. The damage is quite good, but its passive is a lot better. Whenever you deal damage with this sword, you'll get stacking bonuses to weapon skill, ballistic skill, toughness, and also strength, while the enemy hit will suffer the same as a penalty. Considering it stacks until the end of combat, it's pretty good. For the offhand, I would just replace the bleed weapons for the sharpened Venom Blade we had for our main hand in Act 3, just for maximum damage on both main and also offhand. Amusingly enough, once again it has higher damage than even the Gin Blade. Meanwhile, for our two-handed weapon, I would go with Woebringer, as it does have higher damage range than the Bloodseeker Clave. You can deal even higher damage as well at the cost of more AP, equal to your agility bonus, which of course can be around 12 at this point, even higher. Well, and that's pretty much it for our Marazhai Assassin build. If you found this guide useful, as always, please remember to like, subscribe, and also consider becoming a channel member if you can. I truly appreciate your support. Thank you for watching, and see you next time, friends, with Jai, the last remaining story companion.